Am I audible now?
Yes, you are audible.
A very good afternoon to all of you present here. I, Dr. Palaki Banerjee, acting as convener. take privilege-
Kolapi ma'am, your voice is not reaching us. Kindly
Still-
check the sound.
Still not audible?
No, no, no. You are not audible.
Am I audible now?
What you can do, you can just leave the meeting and then can rejoin because we can't hear you. Yes, yes.
Am I audible now? Am I audible now?
Yes, you're audible.
I
Yes,
am
you're
apologizing
audible
for
now.
technical issues. Please keep patience. All of the participants are requested to keep patience.
Am I audible now? Please confirm.
Yes, you're audible now.
Yes, Kolapi.
Okay, thank you. A very good afternoon to all of you present here. I, Dr. Kolapi Banerjee, acting as the convener, take the privilege and pleasure to welcome you all to the international webinar on COVID-19 rebooting economy, organized by the Department of Commerce in collaboration with IQAC of the Bhawanipur Education Society College, affiliated to the University of Calcutta. Today, we are honored to have among us the esteemed resources, Professor Dr. Debashish Shur, Professor of Commerce, University of Burdwan, Professor Dr. Amalendra Bhuiya, Professor of Commerce, University of Konkan, Ankush Kumar Dev, Associate Professor, Department of Hospitality Management, Faculty of Business Studies, University of Dhaka. Sir, your presence kindled among us the yearning to comprehend the multidimensional impact of conflicts on the economic steps to change so that we can prepare ourselves for the new normal. We look forward to being enriched from your insightful deliveries. Thank you. We are also honored to have among us professors, research scholars, and students from various higher educational institutions across India. Your presence is an immense source of inspiration to us. Thank you all for your support and encouragement. At the outset, I would now request Professor Astri Ganguly to begin the proceedings with a prayer song.
Am I audible? Am I audible?
Yes,
Yes,
ma'am.
Atri. Yes, Atriji.
জগতে আনন্দ যোগে আমার নিমন্ত্রণ জগতে আনন্দ যোগে আমার নিমন্ত্রণ ধন্য হলো ধন্য হলো মানব জীবন জগতে আনন্দ যোগে আমার নিমন্ত্রণ নয়ন আমার রূপের পুরে সাজ মিটায় বেড়ায় ঘুরে নয়ন আমার রূপের পুরে সাজ মিটায় বেড়ায় ঘুরে শ্রবণ আমার গভীর সুরে হয়েছে মগন জগতে আনন্দ যোগে আমার নিমন্ত্রণ তোমার যোগে দিয়েছ ভাত বাজাই আমি বাঁশি গানে গানে গেথে বেড়াই প্রাণের কান্না হাসি তোমার যোগে দিয়েছ ভার বাজাই আমি বাঁশি গানে গানে গেথে বেড়াই প্রাণের কান্না হাসি এখন সময় হয়েছে কি সভায় গিয়ে তোমায় দেখি এখন সময় হয়েছে কি সভায় গিয়ে তোমায় দেখি জয়ধ্বনি শুনিয়ে যাব এমন নিবেদন জগতে আনন্দ যোগে আমার নিমন্ত্রণ ধন্য হলো মানব জীবন জগতে আনন্দ যোগে আমার নিমন্ত্রণ। Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Ganguly. May I now request Professor Paromita Chakraborty, Coordinator of the Postgraduate Department of Commerce, the Bhawanipur Education Society College, to initiate the webinar with the introductory words. Thank you.
Thank you, Kalapi. Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, Paromita, you're audible.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. The World Health Organization first declared COVID-19 a World Health Emergency in January 2020. Since then, the emergency has evolved into a global public health and economic crisis, affecting the 90 trillion global economy. The question arises as to how a health crisis translated to an economic crisis, bringing down the world economy to its knees. The primary reason was that with the progression of the disease, social distancing was implemented, leading to shutdown of almost all economic activities. The disease started spreading at an exponential rate, increasing the uncertainty of lives and livelihoods, leading to a flight to safety mode among people, resulting in fall in consumption and investment to start with. To quote an article published by KPMG in August 2020, the only thing certain about the current global economic outlook is that it is uncertain. We are uncertain when the pandemic will be over. We are undecided about its impact on the economic dislocation. Governments all around the world are responding to this health and economic crisis in an uncoordinated way, which is inevitable because there is no one-size-fits-all policy prescription for this situation. At one end of the strategy spectrum, we have tried to minimize the economic damage of COVID-19 by allowing the virus to go through the population relatively unchecked, resulting in a poorer health outcome with stress on the health system. On the other hand, the alternative approach has been to adopt a government-engineered deliberate slowdown of the economy by quarantine, social distancing, closing of borders, and restriction of certain specific activities. So we find that governments are trying their best to strike a balance in their strategies between addressing the public health crisis on one hand and the economic considerations on the other hand. Now the question arises, how will the economy reboot? That is the question we are addressing in this webinar. Different countries are exposed to different experiences. They will be having different recovery paths. That will depend on the policies and strategies adopted by them to maintain, to contain the disease, and how they have managed to contain the disease and managed to overcome the spread of COVID-19. And it also depends on the underlying economic and social structure of the country. Bhawanipur Education Society College has made a conscious effort to make the teaching fraternity and the students aware of the current scenario through webinars, panel discussions, and invited talks. Today, we are proud to present an international webinar on the present situation in collaboration with the IQAC, that is the Department of Commerce, UG and PG, has collaborated with the IQAC of our college, and here the distinguished resource persons will address the issue. I am looking forward to an invigorating session, and I am sure all the participants are also expectant of the very refreshed delivery that we'll be having very soon. So now I would request Dipanita Chatterjee to introduce our first distinguished resource person, Professor Debashish Shur. Over to you, Dipanita.
Thank you, madam. It is my honor to introduce Professor Debashish Shur. Professor Debashish Shur is professor at the Department of Commerce of the University of Burdwan, West Bengal. He was a recipient of gold medal in MCOM in 1990 and was a topper in MPhil in 1993 and completed his PhD in Human Resource Accounting in 2002 from University of Burdwan. Professor Debashish Shur stood first in the first class in BCom Honours. He has over 24 years of teaching experience at the postgraduate level, of which 11 years as professor. He is an invited member of NAC peer team. Professor Shur has so far contributed to more than 100 papers in reputed professional and academic journals. He has authored 4 books and has acted as visiting faculty in different universities in India. Under his supervision, 17 researchers and 22 scholars have completed their PhD and MPhil degrees. Dr. Shur has attended many seminars and conferences in India and abroad and has acted as resource person in several national and international seminars. He is also acting as a reviewer in many international publishing houses such as Macmillan, Taylor & Francis, Springer, Emerald, etc. May I now request Professor Debashish Shur to please give us an insightful delivery. Thank you, sir.
Am I audible and visible? Okay.
Yes, sir.
Good afternoon to everyone present here. Respected Dr. Banerjee, Professor Chatterjee, and Professor Paramita Chakraborty, and distinguished resource persons, Professor Amolendu Bhuiya of University of Kollani, and Dr. S.K. Deb of Dhaka University, and other distinguished professors present here, and my beloved students and ladies and gentlemen. Now we have assembled here to make some discussion on the issue COVID-19 and Indian businesses. We all know that COVID-19 was first found in India in the last week of January 2020. That means we have already spent a period of more than 6 months. Lockdown started in India on 25th March 2020. We have already completed 4th phase of lockdown, and we are now in the semi-lockdown phase. There has been a tremendous uncertainty, and there has been a tremendous impact of COVID-19 outbreak and subsequent lockdown on the Indian economy as well as world economy. In this context, we can mention some information. We all know that the United States of America is the most powerful country in the world from the economic point of view. In fact, USA is financially the strongest country in the world. In USA, in the last April, that means in April 2020, 15 to 17% employees have lost their job. More than 2 crore people have become jobless in the month of April 2020 in USA. Now, if we consider the India's situation, we find that the India's picture is more alarming. If we go through the report published by the CMI, Center for Monitoring Indian Economy, we find that unemployment rate in India, which was less than 7% in the mid-March 2020, has become more than 27%, 27.11% in the first week of May. It was 29% in the urban areas and 26% in the rural areas. However, unemployment rate in India has declined slightly in the last week of May. As per the report published by the CMI on May 27, 2020, the unemployment rate in India was about 24%. It was 26.5% in the urban areas and 22.9% in the rural areas. During this lockdown period, more than 14 crore people have lost their job. They have become jobless during this lockdown period. So it has severe effect on Indian business sector. However, as per the report published by the CMI, Center for Monitoring Indian Economy, in the month of July 2020, we find that the unemployment rate in India has declined significantly. Unemployment rate in India was 7.43% in the month of July 2020 in India. And it was 9.15% in the urban areas and 6.66% in the rural areas. But we can say that the data provided by the CMI may not reflect the true picture revealed in the Indian economy now. In this context, we can mention one significant study conducted by the Federation of Indian Chamber of Commerce and Industry, FICCI. FICCI has conducted one study on the basis of 380 big companies across the sectors. Now let us consider the major findings of this study. Number one, this study reveals that there has been a tremendous uncertainty in the Indian business environment during this pandemic situation. COVID-19 is having deep impact on Indian businesses. Number two, this study also reveals that 72% of the sample companies have been placed in the category of very high level of risk. Another important outcome of this study is that 70% of the sample companies are expecting a degrowth, that means a negative growth in their sales turnover during the financial year 2020-21. As a result, size of business or scale of operations has gone down significantly in the current financial year. In this context, we can mention the names of some significant companies like L&T, Tata Motors, Ultratech Cement, and many companies belonging to the FMCG sectors, including Unilever Hindustan Lever, Nirma, even Maharatna Central Public Sector Enterprise, Vail, all have downsized their business operations in the current financial year. Another significant outcome of this study is that 61% of the sample companies have postponed their expansion program for a period of 6 months to 12 months, and 33% of the sample companies have postponed their expansion program for a period of more than 12 months. Another notable outcome of the study is that 60% of the sample companies have postponed their fundraising plan for a period of 6 months to 12 months, and 25% of the sample companies have postponed their fundraising plan for a period of more than 1 year. So on the basis of the outcomes derived from this study, it can be said that India's business sector has been facing tremendous challenges emanated from COVID-19 outbreak and subsequent lockdown. Now let us consider some additional information in this respect. More than 6,600 Indian companies have legal linkages with companies in countries with a large number of confirmed COVID-19 cases. That means more than 6,600 Indian companies have legal linkages with those foreign companies which are situated in such countries where the outbreak of COVID-19 is severe. In this context, we can cite the example of China. We all know that there is a very close association between India and China in respect of international trade. And we also know that China is the world's largest exporter. It accounts for about 13% of the world export. And China is the second largest importer in the world. It accounts for about 11% of the world's import. China accounts for about 13% of the world exports. And out of this 13%, 5% comes to India. In fact, China contributes more than 14% of the India's total imports. More specifically, we can mention that 45% of the India's total electronics imports come from China. 1/3, that means 33% of the India's total machinery imports come from China. 40% of the India's total organic chemical imports come from China. In case of fertilizer and automotive parts, this is 25%. And 70% of the India's total pharmaceutical ingredients imports come from China. And in case of mobile phone, this is 90%. So these industries have been highly affected by COVID-19 outbreak and subsequent lockdown. We all know that large-scale industries and micro, small and medium enterprises, that means MSME sectors, are interrelated and interdependent. In fact, large-scale industries largely depend on the supply made by the MSME sector. And MSME sector largely depends on the demand of the large-scale industries. It is also to be noted that MSME sector contributes 31% of the India's GDP, and it generally follows a growth rate of at least 10% per annum. Another important point regarding MSME sector is that 45% of the India's total exports are contributed by MSME sector. So MSME sector plays a very vital role in Indian business world. Due to this COVID-19 outbreak and subsequent lockdown, both large-scale industries and MSME sectors have been severely affected. Now let us consider some important information regarding India's economy. According to the assessment made by the World Bank in the month of April 2020, it is expected that the India's growth rate will be 1.5% to 2.8% in the current financial year. As per the report published, as per the assessment made by the United Nations, it is expected that the India's growth rate will be 1.2%. However, as per the assessment made by the World Bank in the month of June, in the first week of June 2020, it is expected that the India's growth rate will be negative. India's growth rate will be minus 3.2% in the current financial year. Similarly, as per the projection made by the International Monetary Fund, it is expected that the India's GDP growth rate will be 1.9% in the current financial year 2020. And this projection was made in the month of April 2020. However, as per the statement made by the governor of RBI, Mr. Saktikant Das, India is expecting a degrowth. That means a negative growth in its GDP in the current financial year. Similarly, as per the projection made by the International Monetary Fund in the month of June 2020, it is expected that India's GDP growth rate will be minus 1.5% in the current financial year. So on the basis of this, it can be said that India's economy has been facing immense threats emanated from COVID-19 outbreak and subsequent lockdown. As a result, India's business sector has also been facing tremendous challenges stemmed from such COVID-19 outbreak and subsequent lockdown in the present day situation. Now, what are the reasons? What are the reasons behind it? We all know that there are four basic components of GDP: personal consumption expenditure, business investment, government spending, and net export. And we also know that personal consumption expenditure is the biggest components of GDP. On an average, personal consumption expenditure contributes about 60% of the India's GDP. Now, if we consider all these four components one by one in the context of the present day situation, we can understand it more clearly. Now, if we consider net export, that means excess of export over import, we find that there has been a drastic fall in both export and import activities in India during this pandemic situation. Now, if we consider the figures relating to the month of March 2020, we find that out of 30 major items, both exports and imports of 29 items have reduced significantly in the month of March 2020. Now, if we consider the figure relating to the month of May 2020, we find that the situation has improved slightly. Out of these 30 major items, both exports and imports of 26 items have reduced significantly in the month of May 2020. And on an average, India's exports have reduced by 37% in the month of May 2020 as compared to the figure of March 2020. And if we consider the import figures, we find that it varies from 45% to 98%. In fact, the machinery imports have reduced by about 45%. Similarly, gold and jewelry imports have declined by 98%. And crude oil imports have reduced by about 70% in the month of May 2020 as compared to the figure relating to the March 2020. So we can say that there has been a drastic fall in both exports and import activities in India during this abnormal period. Now, if we consider government spending, we find that the government is now paying salary only. And in many cases, salary has been cut. There is no new business investment during this pandemic situation. Obviously, India's GDP will almost entirely depend on personal consumption expenditure in near future. So, as per the principles followed in economics, we can say that if personal consumption expenditure goes up, real sector growth rate increases. And if real sector growth rate increases, employment steps up. If employment increases, income increases. And if income increases, demand goes up. That means the purchasing power or spending power goes up. However, in the present day situation, we find exactly the reverse picture, exactly the reverse situation. There has been a drastic fall in personal consumption expenditure in India during this abnormal period. Personal consumption expenditure has declined by about 20% in the month of March 2020 as compared to the figure relating to the previous quarter of the last financial year. So as a result, we can say that the real sector growth rate has declined significantly, employment has reduced, income has reduced, and ultimately demand has gone down. Both internal supply chain and global supply chains have been severely affected during this, have been severely disrupted during this pandemic situation. Now, what is the way out? What are the measures that are to be adopted in order to combat this situation, in order to resolve this problem? In fact, we can say that we are not in a position to make final conclusion. Even we are not in a position to make final prescription. Even we are not in a position to identify the exact measures which are to be adopted in order to combat this situation and in order to mitigate the risk associated with the Indian business sector. However, we have to mention certain points, certain measures which can be adopted in order to combat this situation. The first one is public distribution system should be efficiently managed. Now, question may arise whether there is any relationship between the public distribution system and Indian businesses. I must say that yes, there is a positive relationship, especially in the context of the present day situation. We can say that there is a positive relationship between the strength of public distribution system and the success of Indian businesses. Because we all can say that if public distribution system is properly run, then only people will get adequate amount of food grains as well as other essential commodities. And if it happens, then people will be in a position to spend some money for acquisition of non-essential commodities also. As a result, consumption expenditure will go up and ultimately demand will go up. So on the basis of this, it can be said that there is a positive relationship between the strength of public distribution system and the success of Indian businesses. However, public distribution system is not running properly in India due to certain causes. In this context, we can mention at least 2 points. The first one is lack of information. Government does not have adequate information about the needs of the people, especially the people living in the rural areas, people living in the remote villages. As a result, proper distribution of food grains and other essential commodities cannot be made. So unequal distribution of essential commodities will arise. The second point is that high level of corruption is involved in the public distribution system in India. High level of corruption is involved in public distribution system in India because huge amount of fund is involved in the public distribution system. In this context, we can mention at least 2 points. The first one is that about 80 crore people are the beneficiaries of public distribution system in India. That means 58% people in India, 58% people in India depend on public distribution system. The second point is more important. For the current financial year, that means the financial year 2020-21, fund allocated by the government for providing food subsidy is rupees 1,15,570 crore. Rupees 1,15,570 crore, which is about 3.8% of the total estimated expenditure of the budget estimates as budget estimates relating to the fiscal year 2020-21. So huge amount of fund is involved in the public distribution system in India, and corruption is involved. So corruption starts from the acquisition of food grains and other essential commodities and ends with the distribution process. So high level of corruption is involved in the public distribution system in India. So if we minimize these odds, that means if we remove this problem, then only public distribution system can be effectively run and public distribution system can be efficiently managed. Now the second point is that we can mention the prescription of renowned economist, Professor Abhijit Binayak Bandyopadhyay. According to the prescription of Professor Abhijit Binayak Bandyopadhyay, print currency notes and distribute these currency notes among people without considering the issues associated with inflation. It has already been done in USA and Japan. According to his argument, if people get money, consumption expenditure will go up. As a result, real sector growth rate will increase, employment will step up, income will increase, and ultimately demand will go up. So the prescription of Professor Abhijit Binayak Bandyopadhyay can be adopted in order to combat the situation arising out of COVID-19 outbreak and subsequent lockdown. Now, in this context, we can mention the names of some significant personalities also. We can mention the name of famous economist, Professor Raghuram Rajan, ex-governor of RBI. We can also mention famous economist, famous Marxist economist, Professor Prabhat Pattanaik of JNU. Even we can mention the name of CII President Mr. Uday Kotak. All have made the same recommendations. In fact, we can say that eminent personalities from different corners have made the same recommendations. They have given the same opinion as prescribed by Professor Abhijit Binayak Bandyopadhyay. So the prescription of Professor Abhijit Binayak Bandyopadhyay can be implemented in order to combat this situation. However, it has a negative side also. Presently, the confidence level of people in India has gone down significantly because people are not in a position to predict what will happen in near future also. So their confidence level has gone down. In this context, we can mention one survey conducted by the Reserve Bank of India in the month of May 2020. As per the RBI survey report, the future expectation index, which measures consumers' perception of the economy, was 97.9. In fact, a score below 100 indicates consumers' pessimism. So as the future expectation index in India in the month of May 2020 was 97.9, it indicates that the consumers are not optimist, they are pessimist. Their confidence level has gone down significantly. So if the confidence level of people does not improve, people will not spend money for their present consumption. In that case, people will save money for their future consumption. And if it happens, then we can say that money will not come back to the market. That means personal consumption expenditure will not go up and demand will not go up. So this is the negative side of the prescription of Professor Abhijit Binayak Bandyopadhyay. So during the last 15 or 20 minutes, we have been mentioning only the odds, only the negative points. Now we have to mention one positive side, one hope. So let us consider one silver lining before the corona cloud. We have already mentioned that China is the largest exporter in the world, and China is the second largest importer after USA in the world. So China plays a very vital role in international market, in international business. Now it is expected that China will not be able to retain its share in the international market in near future due to this COVID-19 outbreak. Because we all can remember that COVID-19 was first reported in China on 17th November 2019. 17th November 2019. So it has a severe impact on Chinese economy. Even from the perception of the people, it can be said that it has a negative impact on China. In fact, we can say that the first outbreak of COVID-19 in China has definitely hampered the reputation and goodwill of China in the world market. So as a result, China may not retain its shares in the international market in near future. And if it happens, that means if China is not able to retain its shares in the international market, then foreign capital may come to India, because India enjoys certain competitive advantages. India enjoys certain benefits. In this context, we can mention at least 3 points. The first one is that India enjoys demographic advantages. About 64% people in India belong to the age group of 20 to 35 years. So India has sufficient cheap labor force. The second one is that India has adequate number of skilled IT personnel. And thirdly, political stability in India is much higher as compared to the other neighboring countries. In this context, we can also mention World Bank's Ease of Doing Business ranking. As per the World Bank's Ease of Doing Business ranking, India captured 142nd rank in the year 2014 out of 190 countries in the world. In 2015, India's rank was 131. In both 2016 and 17, India's rank was 130. In 2018, India made a significant improvement in its status and reached 77th rank. And in October 2019, India's rank was 63. So with the passage of time, India has been improving its status in respect of ease of doing business, in respect of World Bank's Ease of Doing Business ranking. So on the basis of this, it can be said that foreign capital may come to India. And if foreign capital comes to India, then it is expected that the India's business sector will do better in near future. More specifically, we can say that foreign direct investment will not only augment capital formation, but also act as a vehicle for technology upgradation, skill development, export promotions, job creations, and even the improvement of the overall competitiveness of the economy. So we can say that obviously this is an opportunity for India in the post-COVID era. And if we grab this opportunity, then in future, we can say that in future, at least a considerable number of years would belong to India at the global stage. That means India's business sector will do better in near future. However, we all know that success of any prediction depends on certain factors. Today, before concluding my lecture, I have to mention one very vital factor, one very important factor. So in this context, we can mention the name of famous social and political theorist, Professor John Elster, Professor of Political Science, Columbia University. And we must mention his classic entitled The Cement of Society, a Study of Social Order. According to his book, according to his famous book, any prediction or any projection can be successfully achieved if proper cooperation is there. That means if proper cooperation is present in the economy, then any prediction or any projection can be successfully achieved. However, there are certain factors which may hamper, which may hurt the strength of cooperation. In this context, we can mention at least 3 points. The first one is personal ego. This is associated with human behavior. So if negative ego takes place, the strength of cooperation goes down. The second one is irregularities and corruption. These are also associated with human beings. If corruptions and irregularities arise, so personal interest takes place. As a result, strength of cooperation goes down. And third one is irrationalities. This is also associated with human behavior. So if we are not rational enough, if we are irrational, obviously the strength of cooperation goes down. So if we minimize the negative impact of these factors, then only we can say that any prediction or any projection can be successfully achieved. That means the strength of cooperation will go up, and ultimately the projection can be successfully achieved. So if it happens, then it is expected that the India's business sector will do better in near future. So with this hope, I am concluding my lecture. Thank you very much. So I must mention one point, that is, I must convey my heartfelt thanks to Professor Paramita Chakraborty and her associates, who have given me an opportunity to act as resource person in this webinar. Thank you very much all. Thank you. Namaskar.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for the very informative delivery on the current position of the overall Indian economy and the possible ways on how to overcome the difficulties and reboot the economy in these trying times. Sir, I humbly request you to stay with us as the interactive session will be held after the completion of the speech of the two speakers. I would request the participants to kindly put questions in the chat box mentioning the names of the respective speakers. Thank you so much, sir. Now, I request Professor Amulendu Bhuiya, our second resource person, to begin his speech. Professor Bhuiya is in the Department of Commerce, University of Kalyani, West Bengal. He has experience in teaching in the subjects like finance, taxation, and statistics for more than 20 years. He has published more than 100 research articles and 8 books in the national and international journals. Now, at present, his Google Scholar citation is 1071 with an H index of 17. He has completed 4 research projects. His research interests are in the financial markets, corporate finance, international finance, behavioral finance. He has presented 52 research papers in various international and national conferences. Presently, Professor Bhuiya is serving as editor-in-chief and founder editor of American Journal of Theoretical and Applied Business Sciences published group in USA for 2 years. He is also an editor-in-chief and founder editor of Indo-Asian Journal of Finance and Accounting. Dr. Bhuiya has acted as a keynote speaker in 44 national and 6 international or foreign conferences. 5 research scholars have been awarded PhD degree and 7 scholars have been awarded MPhil degree under his supervision. So, I request you humbly to please start the session. Thank you, sir.
Okay, am I audible? Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Very good afternoon to everyone. And first of all, respected principal of the college, Bhawanipur Education Society College, Professor Paramita Chakraborty. Am I audible?
Yes, you are audible. Yes, you are audible.
Professor Paramita Chakraborty, Dr. Kalopi Banerjee, and the team of Professor Paramita Chakraborty, including Dr. Anish Dan, Devdeep Mal, Dipanita Chakraborty, and all other teachers, also Shastrabha Chakraborty, and all the teachers who are attending the webinar. Dear participants from different parts of West Bengal and other outside West Bengal, and ladies and gentlemen, first of all, thanks for inviting me to act as an invited speaker. Special thanks to Professor Paramita Chakraborty. I would like to talk about today on the topic COVID-19 and Indian economy, impacts and restores. What are the impacts of COVID-19 on the Indian economy, and is there any possibility to restore for the restoration? That means, is there any possibility of policy prescriptions during the pandemic period? The Indian economy, we all know, has been hit hard by the ongoing COVID-19 driven economic crisis. Why economic crisis? Because if you consider the year 2019 and the report of World Bank and International Monetary Fund in the month of January 2020, Indian economy is slowing down and going to be sluggish just before the COVID-19 coronavirus outbreak. That means the Indian economy is passing through great uncertainty from the year 2019, and the Indian and the COVID-19 pandemic has hardly hit the Indian economy, and at present there are two primary challenges that the Indian economy is facing. Number one, first, we have to save the country from the spread of coronavirus, because the spread of coronavirus is increasing day by day, which is a health emergency. Saving lives is the principle, the concern of the Indian government. Second, I can say, to save the economy from the unfolding economic crisis due to the dual effect I have mentioned. First one is the COVID-19 pandemic. The second one, the COVID-19 lockdown because of COVID-19 pandemic. On 25th March 2020, the lockdown process was started in India, and now we are in the unlock phase 3 in the month of August. The COVID-19 pandemic has induced big external shocks because of lockdowns. These could conflict a blow to the companies which are already struggling with insipid demand conditions domestically. It is important that the labor-intensive sectors such as manufacturing and construction sector, we know the manufacturing output and the construction sector, the production of construction sectors were reduced dramatically immediately after lockdown. This is crucial because any losses in jobs and livelihoods are likely to have dire implications on the level of poverty and hunger, because most of the jobs have been lost because of shutting down of manufacturing sectors during the complete lockdown period. I can mention in the month of April and May, it was reduced, the output of manufacturing industries were reduced dramatically. On June 1, in the unlock phase 1, it was increased, it has been increased slightly, but it is still negative 16.6%, according to the report published by the Indian government. And also, if you think about the purchase manager index, manufacturing purchase manager index, service purchase manager index, both are decreased during the lockdown period, and also in the slightly increase after opening the industry slightly, because we are in the unlock phase 3. It has been increased, but it is still less than 50. That means below indices purchase manager index of manufacturing and services less than 50 indicates that the business activity has been contracted up to July 2020. Now, please, Professor Devdeep Mal, please share my PPT. Hello, Devdeep.
I am changing.
I can continue. What I was saying, output continued to contract because of constrained production capacity in June also. And at the same time, the new business dropped further during the month of July also. Demand from international markets continued to fall, though the pace of contraction was the slowest since the implementation of nationwide lockdown. The COVID-19 has been creating tremors across India, as the economic turbulence may push debt to GDP ratio higher. Actually, according to the RBI report, it has been increased up to 88%. In the current situation, our national economic growth is likely to contract significantly, and based on this, our interest growth differential will turn positive, maybe positive, during the financial year 2021, thus raising serious questions on debt sustainability. There's a sigh of relief for India when it comes to the oil sector, because we know oil prices have been decreased. Brent crude oil and also World Texas crude oil prices have been decreased because of sluggish of the demand across the globe. The sluggish demand in the domestic economy helped India save a lot on oil imports. That means it will decrease the import bill of the country. That means it will decrease the current account deficit also. In this way, Indian economic growth, in spite of positive effect of the crude oil prices, because of low demand, disruption of supply chain, and export-import, purchase manager index, all, and also if you consider the international trade, India's trade market was also decreased, has been decreased. It will negatively affect the Indian economic growth. And from the first quarter of the financial of the calendar year 2020, India's GDP was 3.1 positive. But at present, an unofficial estimates tell that India's GDP at present during the month of August, first week of August, it was negative double digit, near to 10 negative. And if you consider the report of International Monetary Fund and the World Bank report, that means India's GDP will be negative during the financial year 2021, about near to 5%. According to the IMF, it will be 4.9%. According to the World Bank, it will be 5.2%. Devdeep, please.
Yes, sir.
If there is any problem.
Sir, no problem. Sir, you are hearing me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Please share my PPT.
Sir, I am changing. You continue, please.
Okay. Now I am coming to the point. What are the impacts? Indian government has identified 21 indicators where COVID-19 pandemic directly and adversely affect the Indian economy. It is not possible to explain all the indicators, but I want to mention today 4-5 indicators. First, financial, if you consider the financial market, during the complete lockdown period in India, have you shared my PPT?
Yes, sir. Your PPT is being shared continuously.
Oh. This is
Sir,
not
you have to
visible.
tag my screen. Actually, you have to tag my screen.
It is not visible to me.
Sir, you need to
Sir,
pin him actually. Pin that
So you
screen.
find out the Bhawanipur college and you can pin that.
Okay.
Sir, actually, I am presenting from the very beginning.
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay, back. I have mentioned this one. Next slide. First, actually, if you consider the explanation of our Finance Minister, Nirmala Sitharaman, I think on 1st or 2nd August, were talking about the impacts of COVID-19 on Indian economy, and she has identified 21 indicators, and the first and most important indicator is the green shoots. Now question, what is the green shoot? What are the green shoots, or what is green shoot? Green shoots are the signs of recovery or positive data during economic downturn. Green shoots are the signs of recovery or positive data, according to our Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman during the economic downturn. The commitment of the government towards both structural and supportive social welfare measures will build on these green shoots. And she has mentioned in that case, Atmanirbhar Bharat should have been strengthened with the collective effort of all stakeholders and contribute to rebuilding a vibrant economy. I found some indicators of green shoots. Say, for example, agricultural sector. If you consider the agricultural sector, we know during the pandemic period, all the sectors were negative growth. All the sectors show the negative growth, but Indian agricultural sector shows only the positive growth, and during the month of July, it was 3.7% positive. And if you consider the fertilizer sale has been increased because of the procurement of food grains and soybean. If you consider under green shoots, manufacturing and services growth, both manufacturing and services growth have been decreased. And I have already mentioned, and I have mentioned in my first slide, manufacturing purchase manager index and services purchase manager index have been decreased, and it is still less than 50 in case of both manufacturing and services sector. And that means manufacturing and services sector growth adversely affect the Indian economy. If you consider the foreign exchange reserve, because the particular indicator has been considered under green shoots, because just after April 2020, foreign capital has been increased dramatically in spite of negative growth reported by the International Monetary Fund and the World Bank. And because foreign portfolio investment and foreign direct investment, foreign institutional investment have been increased in India, have invested more by the foreign institutional investor, foreign portfolio investment. If you consider the Indian stock market, and Indian stock market volatile, just volatile. I have checked just near to, if you consider the sum of arch and gauge, that just near to 1.01. That means our stock markets are volatile. In spite of that, our stock market are increasing day by day, but yesterday it was decreased. That means because of volatility. But foreign investment has been increased, and at the same time, foreign reserves have been increased during the pandemic period. If you consider during the month of March and during the month of March, April, May, our foreign exchange reserves were reduced, but from June it was increased dramatically. Now, the second point, second indicator, poverty and hunger. If you consider the report of Niti Aayog, next slide, please. If you consider the report of Niti Aayog, December 17, 2019, about almost 22. Please, previous slide. Yeah. Poverty and hunger went up in 22. Poverty went up in 22 states, and hunger went up in 24 states. And COVID-19 impact, COVID-19 pandemic affect the poverty and hunger indicator in 2020. If you consider the month of July 2020, it has been increased to about 32 states, and also hunger also went up in 32 states. If you consider the SDG index, where no poverty, in Arunachal Pradesh it was -19. That means Arunachal Pradesh was the poverty of Arunachal Pradesh was highest. Now Arunachal Pradesh shows the highest poverty, and lowest in Uttarakhand. If you consider the West Bengal, it was -5. If you consider no hunger index, then Chhattisgarh, the state of Chhattisgarh, is the highest, and it was lowest in Sikkim, and in West Bengal it was -10. Why? Because 200 million of people back into extreme poverty and hunger in India because of the pandemic. About 149 million migrant and daily wage workers lost their job, and it will increase the poverty and hunger because migrant workers return to their home because there are no jobs because of shutting down of manufacturing business during the month of April and May, and obviously daily wage workers at the same time, because of social distancing policy and lockdown policy, the daily wage workers' jobs have been were lost, and ultimately it will increase the poverty and hunger. In this way, ultimately the household consumption has been contracted by 20%. 20% during the date August 6, 20%. But if you consider the month of April and May, it was more than 44%. But on and from June and July, because we are in the unlock phase 1, 2, 3, some daily wage workers and migrant workers are returned back. Some of the migrant workers are returned back to their workplace, and for this reason, and some of the because large industries are open and service sector in some cases open. For this reason, the poverty and hungers, it has been decreased in the month of July about 183 million of people. Next slide. Now, obviously, I have already mentioned, because of migrant workers and in case of some contractual workers in informal sector have lost their jobs. Obviously, COVID-19 pandemic affect the job losses. What we know, if we consider the unorganized sector, 94% total workforce of India, 43.7 crore were engaged in unorganized sector. Almost 94%, 43.7 crore people have lost their job in unorganized and unorganized sector during the month of April and May 2020. And after opening the economic activities, because industries, in some cases service sectors, after opening the industries and service sector, it has been decreased to 79% of the total workforce are now jobless. If you think about the organized sector, 6%, actually 2.8 crore people are engaged in the organized sector. Now question may arise, government declared a stimulus package, but what about the unorganized workers who are engaged, constitute 94% of the total workforce and hardest hit by the COVID-19 pandemic? Actually, I want to mean 149 million migrant and daily wage workers who lost their job because of pandemic. What are the reasons? Reasons, because number one, because of health problem. Obviously, they returned back to their home and lost their job. Number two, lockdown, because all the business sectors were shutting down their businesses. Trade disallows, shutting down of trade and transport, obviously lost their jobs. But if you consider the informal or unorganized sectors, at present about 79% who have no income. Actually, government invest some cash from 500 to 6,000 per people and deposited into their bank, and also declared a free ration up to November 2020 by the central government, and also up to June 2021 by the state government of West Bengal. But this is not a permanent solution, I think. What I think. Okay, next slide. Impact on healthcare. Healthcare, in that case, the healthcare industry. Despite the implementation of lockdown measures, including travel bans in India, there has been an increasing incidence of COVID-19 in India, and the number continues to rise in spite of a lockdown or local lockdown. Because we know and from June 1, lockdowns, lockdown measures have been relaxed because around across the countries. But in some cases, local lockdowns are continuing. Say, for example, if you consider the state of West Bengal, in a month of July or August, about 6-7 lockdown days have been declared by our state government. Obviously, daily wage workers and the migrant workers who have already engaged in the in their state in his or her home, obviously they have affected. But when I'm talking about the healthcare industry, now question may arise: how has this impacted healthcare company in India? Obviously, the public policy measures have resulted in significant operational disruption in the healthcare industry, I can say. While public policy have been implemented to contain the spread of COVID-19, the measures have resulted in a significant operational disruption for many companies, including those in the Indian healthcare industry. We know because healthcare industries were also shutting down their business in around India. In some cases, I found the report. Staff quarantine, supply chain failure because transport travel disruption, sudden reduction in customer demand because almost all the customers are interested to spend their money only for essential goods, not non-essential goods. But health and medicine are essential. But if you consider 200 million people who are in the poverty and hunger line, they are not interested to invest their money in the healthcare industry. Obviously, the customer demand has been decreased seriously. Obviously, the revenue lost in this period represents a permanent loss and has put sudden and unanticipated pressure on the working capital lines and liquidity. Ultimately, healthcare industry also sacked their workers, sacked their contractual employees. In this way, COVID-19 affect the healthcare industry also. Despite the current crisis in a healthcare issue, the private healthcare system in the country continues to reel. Private healthcare system in India continues to reel under the negative impact of COVID-19. That means there has been a significant drop in both patient or outpatient or private hospital chain. It is a specially multi-speciality or tertiary or tertiary care hospital or even diagnosis business during this lockdown. That means COVID-19 ultimately negatively affect the healthcare system. That what I have mentioned, out of 21 indicators identified by the government, I have mentioned number 1, the green shoots, number 2, impact on the poverty, and hunger, impact on the jobs, and impact on the healthcare. And in these 4 important factors, ultimately are affecting the Indian economy negatively. And for this reason, and unofficial estimates show that the India's economic growth at present actually near to 10, not 5% or 4%. And also they have also mentioned, if lockdowns are not continued and all the economic activities are returned back, real economic activities are continued, if demand is increased, if supply chain system is improved, obviously it will decrease the double-digit negative growth to 5% negative growth during the year 2021. That means, and also along with this, financial markets also volatile, and volatile financial market negatively affect the economic growth. If you consider the commodity market, other than stock price, other than stock market, if you consider some coal, gold price, silver prices, just yesterday gold prices have been decreased, but it was increased day by day. That means the commodity market are also negatively affecting the Indian economy. In this way, what the government has identified 21 indicators. I have mentioned here only 4 and 5 factors. That means negatively affect the Indian economy. These are the effects of COVID-19 on the Indian economy. Now, question may arise: is there any restoration policy of Indian economy? Or in other way, what are the policy prescriptions? What are the policy prescriptions? I have mentioned here based on my factor. I have mentioned here 5. I have mentioned 4 factors but I have mentioned here 5 prescriptions. Massive job losses should be tackled. How massive job losses should be tackled? In that case, I can say the government has to arrange transport system so that migrant workers can return to their workplace without any cost, on the condition that the migrant workers will be engaged in their previous workplace. Number 2, government has create some job opportunities. What I know, government has declared in their stimulus packages in the rural area, construction, more and more construction sectors, construction industries or constructions will be developed. And in the construction sector, daily wage workers and also migrant wage workers who are not able to return to their previous workplace due to shutting down of the previous workplace or because of a health crisis. Migrant workers have to engage in the construction sector, especially in the rural area, and also create some job opportunities in the urban areas, because there is no data in the hands of the government. How many migrant workers are returned back in the rural area, in the urban area? The government has to maintain the accounts of the numbers of the daily wage workers and the migrant workers. And in this way, job losses should be tackled. Number two, more public healthcare should be. More public healthcare should be required for COVID-19, because every day, if you see the TV news in most of the states, and if you think in our states, public healthcare system is not well. And around, if you consider around India, public healthcare system is not well. That means government has to improve the public healthcare system. In this way, government has to develop new COVID-19 hospital, so that COVID-19 patients should be admitted without any hesitation. And also government has to confirm about the PPE and also some kits, antigen kits, etc. In this way, government has to improve the public healthcare system. And next, funds to states and local bodies should be transferred. And most of the chief ministers claim that the central government doesn't transfer their stimulus packages to the states and the local government. And because the state government is the main army of the COVID-19 fighting, it is necessary, it is important to note that the central government has to transfer the COVID-19 funds that has been declared by the central government, should be transferred to the state government, and in this way should be transferred to the local bodies, who are the main warrior of the COVID-19 pandemic. And next, public spending should be increased. The central government declared stimulus packages for supporting the poor, monetary support and public distribution system, and also support to the MSME sector, because MSME sector hardly affected by COVID-19, and also support the business sector through loans or different way. In this way, it is just 10% of GDP. If you consider the other countries, other important countries, they declared about 20%, 15%, or more than 15% of GDP as government spending. Because in every budget, government spending is less than the actual spending. But because of COVID-19, government has to spend more for the poor people, for the hunger people, for the industry, for the business, so that the industry should be are improved, and also productions are started. Product output, if output is increased, obviously the export bill will be increased. In that case, it will increase the economic growth. And also government has to boost up the supply chain. How to boost up the supply chain? Because our Prime Minister, Honorable Prime Minister Narendra Modi ji tells that in a TV news or in a Mon Ki Baat. Okay, sir. The Indian government sending medicines and devices around the world. It will increase the export bill. It will increase the foreign exchange reserve. It will increase the COVID-19. And not only this, but the government has to boost up the supply chain from the industry to the consumer, to the wholesaler, to the distributor, from one state to another. Not only exports, government has to break the silent supply chain system. In this way, government may ensure seamless flow of goods from the industry to the consumer. And in this way, if these prescriptions are made immediately, I can say some of the indicators will be improved, and in this way, economic growth will be increased, and ultimately the Indian economy will be restored, at least in some way. And I can say if the government tackles this prescription in this way, what I want to mention, I have mentioned here, the consumer confidence index will be increased, because low demand is the main reason of economic crisis from the year 2019. It has to be increased. It has to be increased. Government has to be increased the business business confidence index. The government has to consider some economic policy, some economic reforms. I can mention in the banking sector also, so that because debt to GDP ratio has been increased to 88%. This is a negative sign of the Indian economy. In this way, economic policy uncertainty index has been increased month by month, day by day. It will negatively affecting the Indian economy. Government has to tackle the consider some economic policy, so that the business sector, the economic sector, the service sector, also in other sectors, also the poor people, hunger people are recovered, and in this way, Indian economy can be restored. And at this point, I am concluding my discussion. Thank you very much. Stay safe.
Thank you, sir, for the excellent and enlightening presentation. Many amongst the esteemed listeners were especially interested in your analysis on the topic COVID-19 on Indian economy, impact and restores. And the discussion on policy presentations were really informative. Sir, I humbly request you to please stay with us for the interactive session, which will commence after Professor Shantosh Kumar Dev's speech. Thank you, sir. The next presentation will be made by Professor Shantosh Kumar Dev, the keynote speaker. He is the director of MBA EU program and associate professor, Department of Tourism and Hospitality Management, University of Dhaka, Bangladesh. He has got his PhD degree in service management and also European Union Erasmus Scholar Executive Program in Strategic Digital Marketing from University of Cambridge in association with UT Grad postgraduate diploma in supply chain management from Bangladesh Institute of Human Resource Management. He has also received MBA and BBA degree major in marketing from University of Dhaka. He has conducted classes in Vincent Paul University, Lublin, Poland, as a visiting professor. He has many international publications in the area of business and tourism in renowned journals. Thank you, sir. I request you to kindly give us your speech.
Thank you so much, Deepanita Chakraborty. At first, I want to give the special thanks to Bhawanipur Education Society to organize such an fantastic international webinar on recent topic, COVID-19 Rebooting Economy. And I want to give the special thanks to the principal of Bhawanipur Education Society College and Professor Dr. Paramita Chakraborty and Professor Devdeep Mal to invite me of today's session as a resource person. And basically, last 1.5 hours, I just listening to distinguished research person and their insightful speech, Professor Dr. Debashish Shore and Professor Dr. Amilendra Bunia. So right now, I'm just going to talking about the impact of COVID-19 pandemic on tourism business and how we are just going to make the rebooting to the economy by ensuring the tourism. Please, I'm just looking for the chance to presenting my paper, please.
Yes, sir. You can present over. No problem.
So now presenting Bonusri Chatterjee.
Yeah. You can present over that. Just screen on the click on the Bonusri Chatterjee is presenting. Yes, sir. It is visible.
Okay, now visible, please.
Yeah. You can
Okay,
start the
thank you.
slideshow.
Impact of COVID-19 pandemic of tourism business. So if we're just going to talking about tourism is a very big and important sector in a global economy and boosting the global economy in last 20 years, the statistics shows that tourism has a huge contribution to the development of world economy. But if we're just going to talking about in different types and different type of epidemic has an impact on tourism business. But this is related to this figure. It shows that the air transport passenger carried and another one, the rate is indicated that international tourism arrival. But in 2001, the September 11, the terrorist attack and also make a negative impact on tourism business in globally. So that is also decreases the air transport passenger internationally and also decreases the international tourist. So after the 2003, the SARS outbreak also has a negative impact on tourism business in globally. The chart is also shows that there is also the another negative impact and also decreases the total number of international tourists from the year of 2002 to 2003, and from 2003 also decreases the international air travel passenger. But in 2009, the global economic crisis, because the tourism is related to the per capita income and tourism is related to the people's standard of living, and definitely the global economic crisis has a very huge negative impact on international tourism. But if you just look at this figure, it's seen that from 2006, 7, 8, and 2009, the time is a huge number of international tourists decreases because their incomes decreases, and at a time the international air travel passenger people don't love to traveling to one country to the another country because they don't have sufficient financial support. But in 2015 is March outbreak and also have a negative impact. But this does not create too much negative impact to the international tourism. But now the time is 2019 at the end of December in Wuhan, China. there is another outbreak is coronavirus, and that is COVID-19. Which one is a very great impact to the tourism business in our subcontinent and also in global economy. So right now I'm talking about tourism for sustainable development goal and journey 2030. But if it is the 2030, the sustainable development goal is consist of 17 goal and 105 objectives. But out of 17 goals, the 4 goals is directly related to the tourism sector, and tourism is such a sector which has a huge contribution to the global economic development process, and also which has the direct, indirect, and induced benefit to the economy. But if you're just going to talking about the statistics in 2019, in globally the world tourist is 1.56 billion, which one in 1950 that was only 25 million. But if you're just thinking about after the Second World War, the international tourism is more exposed, and people would love to traveling from different country. And in case of the European Union countries, people frequently they're working in different countries because they have such an work permit. So that's why the people traveling after the 1950s more increasing, and basically tourism development, and people would love to traveling to different countries for recreational purposes, for business purposes, and for personal pleasure purposes. So that's why after the 1950 there is a huge international tourist is increased. But in 2019, direct, indirect, and induced benefit and contribution to the global economy is 8.9 trillion. But in 1950, that was only 2 million. In comparison to 1950, the 2019, out of in between the 70 years, there is a huge tourism contribution is increased in the economic development of globally. But the tourism statistics also in 2019, the economic GDP contribution in global economy is 10.3%, but almost 330 million people a job created in tourism sector. But out of 10 people, 1 people accommodation or 1 people job opportunity created in tourism. But in last 5 years, statistics also shows that out of 4 people, 1 people employment opportunity created in tourism. So right now it's indicated that the tourism is a very big and fantastic and very unique sector to create the employment opportunity. But in 2019 also shows that US dollar 1.7 trillion visitor export and US dollar 948 billion capital investment. So this is the huge investment is increasing, and total visitor in globally is increasing. So in a particular country, tourism contribution to the economy is increasing day by day. But now the time, there is one of the very, very crucial impact of a COVID-19 pandemic in global tourism. So today's the time is international tourism is decreases at 22% in first quartile. The time is going to representing from January to March. And could it decline up to 60 to 80% over the year? So that is going to expected that in 2020, the total number of the international tourists may be decreased from 60 to 80%. And the source of the data is United Nations World Travel Tourism Organization. And this is also just going to representing that there is one of the figure. This figure shows that in July, the scenario is 58% international tourists decreases, and in September that is also predicted that the 70% international tourists will be decreased. And in December, if such way the epidemic is prolonged, so the COVID-19 is ongoing, so that will create that the huge negative impact on international tourism. And that is also going to representing the scenario 3 is in December, maybe minus 78% international tourists will be decreasing. So this is one of the very alarming issues related to the tourism, and that is also very negative impact on tourism. So I believe that the COVID-19, they have a huge negative impact on tourism. Right now, the impact of COVID-19 on tourism in January to April 2020, another statistics from UNWTO, United Nations World Tourism Organization, they also mentioned that 180 million international tourist arrival already decreased in January to April, and 195 billion US dollar lost in export revenues from international tourists, and 100% tourist destination restriction are restricted. So in from April, basically the tourism destination they have declared the restricted to protect the COVID-19 epidemic. So in case of the international tourist arrival, the scenarios is related to in 2019, 1.5 billion. There was the international tourist, and expected that or predicted that in 2020 there will be accepted the 4% international tourist, but there have seen a negative scenarios from January to April, minus 44% international tourist is decreased. But if you're just going to consider the America in 2019, 220 million international tourists is decreased, and international tourist that was in 2019, and also expected that in 2020 there will be increased the 2% international tourist. But a reverse phenomena we have seen in January to April in 2020, there is a 36% international tourist is decreased from America. But in Europe, that is called the heart of tourism. But in 2019, we also seen that from the statistics, 745 million international tourists traveling Europe, but also expected that 4% the growth will be in 2020. But in January to April, the scenarios represented that there is the minus 44% international tourism. That's mean 44% international tourists in consideration to 2019. That is decreases from January to April in 2020. But in Africa also right now, they have more focus on international tourism, and tourism, there is a huge contribution to the economic development of African countries. But in 2019, the scenarios is going to representing 73 million international tourist travel already Africa, but also expected that in 2020 there will be increased 6% international tourists. But the scenarios represented that from the January to April in 2020, already 35% international tourists decreased. Right now, the Middle East also have focused on religious tourism and halal tourism. And today's the time, the statistics represented that in 2019, 61st million international tourists travel in Middle East, but also expected that in 2020 there will be increased the 2% international tourist growth. But the phenomenon is different. The phenomenon is representing due to the COVID-19. January to April, there is 40% international tourist decrease. But the basic point is related to the Asia and Pacific. There is statistics from 2019 also represented that 361st million international tourists travel in South Asia and Asia Pacific countries, and also expected that in 2020 4% growth will be the international tourist. But the scenarios represented to January to April in 2020, there is minus 51% international tourists. So if we are just talking about the global scenario from January to April is representing in around 44% international tourists is a decrease. But now the time, another one figure is going to representing that is related to America, that is related to Africa and Middle East countries, and also the major focusing point is related to the Asia Pacific countries. But in case of the American countries, the overall scenarios is going to representing 68% international tourist is decreased due to the COVID-19 and up to now, I mean up to June. And the time is going to representing the inbound Europe. Inbound, I mean, there are the international tourism, basically great impact on another great impact on Europe. 79% international tourists already decreased due to the COVID-19 outbreak. But now this is the Asia Pacific countries. Asia Pacific countries shows that huge impact on South Asia, 85% decrease, and Northeast Asia, 133% decrease, and there is another one, Southeast Asia, 133.2% minus. I mean, from 2019. So the overall statistics is related to 114% international tourist is decreased from Asian countries. So this is a very alarming scenario, and that will create in upcoming days a very negative impact on the economy of Asia Pacific countries. And another one scenario is related to the COVID-19 pandemic. This is the scenario is representing the loss of demand in international travel. If we're just going to consider the loss, we are considered the loss of 850 million to 1.1 billion international tourists may be lost in 2020, which was in 1.56 billion in 2019. So that is going to representing near about the 78%. And the loss of international tourist export revenue in 2019, 2.9 trillion revenue generated from the tourism sector, but it is also expected that due to the COVID-19 pandemic in 2020, the losses may be US dollar 910 billion to 1.2 trillion USD. And also there is one of the very big important another area is related to the job. I mean, in 2019, 330 million people they're engaged in tourism sector, and out of 10 people, 1 people employment opportunity created in tourism sector. But it is also predicted that 100 million to 120 million direct tourism at risk right now. And by the worst crisis in international tourism, that's also began in 1950 and also felt a very varying degree in different global regions and overlapping the times, the South Asia and Pacific expected to rebound the first. So now I'm just going to talking about another one. The comparative statistics is related to India and Bangladesh tourism scenario. India and their country branding status is incredible India. But incredible India. But GDP contribution is 9.2% and self sector is also created 12.75%. The country workforce's employment opportunities. And the data from the 2018 to 19 also seen that over the 87 million people were employed in tourism industry. And due to the COVID-19, that is also predicted that 38 million jobs is risk right now, those who are working in tourism sector. But the total 12.75% employment, directly tourism contribution is 5.56% and 7.19% indirect in 2018 in India. But the COVID-19, another one report from KPMG also reported that in financial services and business, one of the advisory firm, they also predicted that 70% of total workforces may be risked due to the COVID-19. But now the another one countries, Bangladesh, and their country branding as status is beautiful Bangladesh. Definitely another fantastic branding strategy and branding their tourism, and the GDP contribution to the economy of Bangladesh is 4.4%, and 18.58 lakh people they are engaged in tourism sector. That is 2.9% of total job. Tour Operator Association of Bangladesh predicted that or estimated that the 5,700 crore taka may be lost due to the COVID-19. And Pacific Asia Travels Association Bangladesh chapter also estimated that the total number of losses may be direct and indirect in tourism sector that will be 9,705 crore taka. And also estimated that the 3 lakhs people, 3 lakh 5,000 people, their job risks, those are working in tourism sector due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Right now, we are just going to talking about recovery strategy for rebooting the economy. So today, the term is COVID-19, and the epidemic is increasing and globally. And the each and every country, they're just going to taking the different type of strategies to prevent the COVID-19. And our strategy is stay at home today and travel tomorrow. This is our strategy, and this is the strategy of UNWTO. And there should have some financial and political support is very essential to recover the tourism sector. Again, that will create the more significant impact to the economy of globally. And this is also the number one recovery strategy is related to urban tourism. We have to be given the more focus and continuous development for tourism in globally. But right now, to revive the tourism sector, there also be suggested that reopen the tourism destination and recreational park in a limited way by maintaining the health guideline to survive the life and livelihood. Today, the time is very important, life and livelihood. That's why, so to protect the livelihood, so suggesting to the reopen tourism destination in a limited way. Government also must have to be provided the different type of incentives program, and it must be available soft interest rate loan payment, and for the small and medium enterprises, those who are related to the tourism sector, government should provide it the different type of cash incentives or cash support, and they also provided some security for the organization, and there also be removed the different type of tax relaxation for the tourism industry stakeholder to protect themselves and to protect the employees. But after the post-COVID-19, there also have a very significant impact of electronic and print media should take a positive approach to support the tourism industry. But print media and electronic media, they should have to be take another initiative to promoting the different destination of the tourism, and it's related to the archaeological tourism, man-made tourism, and nature-based tourism. And after the post-COVID, the behavioral pattern of the tourist may be changed due to their income will be changed, and they're just going to looking for better quality tourism packages or low price tourism packages, better quality tourism services at a low cost, and that will be the demand of international tourists and also for the domestic tourists. But after the COVID-19, we have to be more focused on cost-cutting approach, and we have to be go for different type of program. It's related to the video conferencing, virtual tourism conferences, and virtual meeting and virtual tourism fair. It may be organized along with the monitor of tourist behavior. Definitely, we have to be observed that tourist behavior is a very important thing. Before COVID-19, people they would frequently traveling to different countries because there is no the mental state, there is no pressure on the human psychology. So today the people, they are under the different type of psychological stress, and whenever they're traveling from one destination to another destination, people, they're thinking about the safety, security, and even they're just looking for the health guideline today. So that will create one of the changes in socially and economic changes we have to be observed. And on the basis of the economic changes and social changes, we have to be take the appropriate strategy to protect the tourism sector in upcoming days. United Nations World Tourism Organization, they have also called for international organization is related to the donor agencies and government support to quick recovery from the pandemic. And also they are just going to take a wider action to recovery plan to revive the tourism industry and to revive the world economy and a country particular economy. But in the post-viral world, the people might be allowed traveling from one country to another country with antibodies against the COVID-19 and free with some sort of the health insurance and offer at a discount package on airlines and hotel. In upcoming days, if you are just going to again revive the tourism industry, they have to be offered at a low price air ticket packages and hotels. They have to be provided different type of discount that will stimulate the people again to traveling the different destination. They would love to take the benefit of pleasure, and again they want to refresh, and again they want to enhance their productivity and related to the intelligence say, and also that will create the people more creative thinking and more better outcome in a particular organization work areas. So today's the time whenever we are just going to working in a week, we just feel huge amount of the human psychological stress. After that, we are just going to looking for our leisure time, and we are just going to looking for leisure time. We are going to passing in a very recreational way. So today's the time is just going to make the demand of tourism, and tourism is a very important thing to the development of a country economy. So we have to be more focused on domestic tourism at first, but within the very short term, domestic tourism will gain the reshape feature, but international tourism to gain the picture like 2019, it will take time. Thank you so much, everyone, for being with me, and thank you so much, Bhavani. Thank you so much, Bhawanipur Education Society College to invite me in today's session.
Thank you, sir. My sincere thanks to you. And I must mention that your lecture on impact of COVID and its impact on tourism business and how it has impacted the global tourism has been very interesting in today's scenario. Now, may I request Dr. Duti Sinha to kindly start the interactive session. Over to
Thank you. Am I audible?
Yes, yes, yes.
Yes. Thank you, Dipanita, for your kind words. I will be proceeding with the question and answer session. We have limited time, so I will be combining maybe 2 or 3 questions together, and I will pose 2 questions for each of the speakers. Okay, is Omolendu sir here? Or Devashish sir, are you there? So I will start with Devashish sir.
Devashish sir is there, but there is some problem from Omolendu sir's end. I am trying to rejoin him. Okay, I am trying to rejoin him.
Okay, so I will be addressing the questions for Devashish sir then. Sir, this is the first question from Dr. Shantanu Das, Prabhu Jagatbandhu College. Sir, is there any role of SHG to combat with the present economic crisis due to COVID-19 pandemic? Is there any role of SHG?
Yes, definitely. Yes, definitely it has a role. But the situation, main problem is that the lack of demand. So we have to create demand, first of all, in the economy. So if demand is not created, so economy will not be revived. So this is the main problem. So we have to address this issue first. Okay, and definitely a self-help group has a positive role to revive the economy, especially in order to improve the productivity and production of the in many sectors associated with them. Okay, but the main problem is the problem associated with the creation of demand. So we have to, first of all, we have to create demand. And so we have to make necessary steps in order to create demand, in order to enhance the demand. Okay.
Thank you, sir. The second question is from my side actually. How sustainable in terms of distribution, transparency and inclusiveness is the prescription of economist Abhijit Vinayak Banerjee on printing money and distributing it among the entire population?
No, not for the entire population. Not for the entire currency will be distributed among the needy peoples, among the underprivileged people, among the poor people, not for all. Okay. So in order to enhance their economic development, economic condition, in order to enhance their economic condition, only currency notes will be distributed among the needy people, among the underprivileged people, among the poor people, not for all. Okay.
Okay. Sir, the next question is from Professor Ashok Kumar Bose. What measures Government of India has taken up to the present level to revive the Indian economy? And if Nobel laureate's advice is implemented in India, will it not create inflation?
Yes, definitely. Professor Abhijit Vinayak Banerjee has mentioned that currency notes are to be printed and these are to be distributed among people, among poor people, without considering the issues associated with inflation. Definitely, if currency notes are distributed among people, inflation may arise. So without considering this issue, because if inflation arises, definitely it has a negative impact on economy. It has a negative impact on the people. But poor people, presently the poor people have not no money. So first of all, we have to provide some money to them. So that's why in this situation, without considering the issues associated with inflation, we have to distribute currency notes among poor people. Okay, so this is the suggestion, this is the opinion as mentioned by Professor Abhijit Vinayak Bandyopadhyay. Okay, and it has already been done in many countries, especially in USA and Japan. It has already been done. So definitely inflation may arise, but we have to ignore this. First of all, we have to distribute money among poor people in order to enhance, in order to increase their economic condition first, and in order to increase their purchasing power. Okay.
Thank you, sir. The last question for you from Vidyut Basu. To what extent Government of India's supply side management is, instead of creating a demand side, will help the economy?
Okay, definitely. Actually, the India's economy is, we can say that it is demand-driven economy. So, first of all, we have to create demand. This is the main issue. So, if demand is not created properly, then it would be very difficult. We can say that the Indian economy, it is very difficult for the economy to revive. Okay. So, demand is to be created first. Definitely, supply should be properly made in order to revive the economy, in order to combat the situation arising out of this COVID-19. Supply side should be properly maintained. But the main problem is associated with demand. So we have to create demand first. Okay.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. Now we will move on to our second speaker, who is Professor Amolendu Bhuiya. Sir, are we connected? You can hear?
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
The first question is from Gautam Sharma. Being a responsible citizen of India, what are the things that we need to do at an individual level instead of waiting and pointing towards the government in this pandemic situation?
Please again.
Being a responsible citizen of India, what are the things that we need to do at an individual level instead of waiting and pointing towards the government?
Hello. Am I audible?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. As a common man in this region, first, the common man has to maintain the government policy regarding the social distancing policy and lockdown method, lockdown policy, because of health problem. And first, the citizen of India has to be maintain social distancing policy, lockdown policy, and wearing a mask, everything. First, because of health. Second thing is demand is very poor. Where from demand will be arised? From the Indian citizen. If about 98.1% people in India have their purchasing power have been decreased from the year 2019 up to June 2020. Obviously, because their purchasing power has been decreased, obviously the demand will be decreased. That means how will the demand be increased? Because first they have some, if they have some money, they wants to purchase some goods or incurred for spend for services sector, purpose. Therefore, that if the money is not available to about 98.1% people, obviously the citizen of India, what will do? Citizen of India, how the demand will be increased? First, the income of the common man, income of the citizen will be increased through the government. In that case, the demand will be increased, consumption will be increased, purchasing power will be increased. And in other side, what the government has taken, the policy regarding the pandemic period, regarding the support to the Indian business, support to the workers, support to the poor people, hunger people, they have to maintain it and maintain it as silently. Okay.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Hello.
The second, yes, sir. Hello.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. You are audible.
Okay.
Sir, the second question is jointly for both Dr. Shur and Dr. Dhuria. This is from Professor Anish Kumar Da. He has asked that if we want to measure the performance of a profit-making company, which approaches will be better towards rebooting Indian economy? Financial perspective or non-financial perspectives? Long-term orientation or short-term orientation? Tangible assets or intangible assets?
Okay, can I explain?
Yes, sir. Sure, sir. Please
Question to
proceed.
me. Okay, okay. Dr. Dan raised a question regarding the micro level. What micro factors actually affecting the Indian economy during the pandemic period? First, you have to think what are the factors, what are the microeconomic factors. There are lots of microeconomic factors. I can mention some factors. First of all, number one factor, customers, consumers. Number two, workers. Number three, supply chain. Number four, the investment to the business, investment to the farms. And number five, obviously the common man. Obviously the common man. First, consumer. Consumer confidence index is still lower than 50. Should have been increased. I have already mentioned. This is the micro factors, not the macro factor. And how consumer confidence index will be increased? And because first, if the purchasing power is increased through the income, increasing the revenue. Hello.
Yes, sir. Continue.
Sorry for the interruption.
Yeah. Through the revenue, obviously, consumer confidence index will be increased. At the same time, during the pandemic period, because workers back to their return to their home and cannot return to the workplace, obviously the wage cost, because non-availability of workers, it will increase the production cost. Production cost increase the inflation, and ultimately the consumption cost will be increased. And in that case, ultimately it will negatively affect the customers, and it will decrease the consumer confidence index. And first, if consumer confidence index will be increased, if the wage rate, production cost is controlled by the business through the government policy. Number two, workers or employees. If you think about the workers, I have mentioned workers, not the macroeconomic factor. Workers are the microeconomic factors. Employees are the microeconomic factors. If workers are not returned to their workplace because of health, I have already mentioned the government has to arrange some transport system so that the migrant workers can return their workplace and also create some job opportunities. And in that, if workers are engaged in the workplace, obviously the wage rate will be decreased. And at the same time, all the economic activities, including the transport, because transport are necessary for distribution of raw materials and goods, and it will decrease the production cost. In this way, it will decrease the inflation rate. It will, in this way, workers can be benefited, employees can be benefited, business can be benefited. Ultimately, it will positively affect the Indian economy and Indian business. At the same time, supply chain. According to my opinion, according to different economic opinion, all the economic activities should be started. All the economic activities should be started so that the supply chain should be improved. And how is it possible? Travel and transport system should be allowed. At the same time, we have some supply factors. Say for example, 8 core industry. Say for example, manufacturing, mining and power sector. And also steel is the backbone of any industry. If all the industries and also purchase manager indexes are improved, obviously it will increase the Indian economy, and before increasing the economy, obviously it will increase the profit of the business sector, and it will increase the index of industrial production, and industrial production favorably affect the Indian economy. Next point, investment. Investment is the crucial factor because if you consider the micro, small, medium enterprises, the micro, small enterprises, it is hurt by the COVID-19 pandemic because of low working capital. And they consist more workers. About 114 million workers are engaged in the MSME sector, and therefore, if the government support to the MSME sector and support, and also the low interest support is given by the government to the MSME sector, it will improve the business. Then profit will be increased. It will increase the cash inflows, and future cash inflows, and future cash inflows ultimately increase the economic growth positively. And last of all, the common man. And there are no differences between the common man and customers, according to my opinion, because common men are generally engaged in two ways: for purchase goods or receiving services, and number two, invest some money into the bank or financial market. If the common man is free for investment, and if they are taking a risk, they want to take any risk, because our stock market is increasing. Therefore, common man will invest in the stock market. I think you are aware that the domestic institutional investment and domestic investment has been increased in the financial market. It will increase the economic growth. At the same time, common man purchasing power. If the common man purchasing power is increased, and that means the government has to control the production cost and also the supply chain system. If the production cost is decreased, obviously it will decrease the demand. It will increase the consumption cost. Ultimately, it will decrease the consumption cost. Ultimately, decrease the demand, and high demand will increase the economic growth, Indian economy. In this way, Indian economy can be restored, can be rebooted. At the same time, I can say that two important factors for long-term effect, because you have mentioned the long-term effect. Now, there is two important factors. Number one is spending effect. Number two is spillover effect. The spillover effect means that if you consider the financial market integration, foreign capital, we have to consider the friendship with the foreign country, so that the foreign institutional investor and foreign individual can invest in our market. At the same time, spending effect, government spending should be increased, and government spending not only to the poor people, government spending should be increased to the business sector also. In that case, the output will be increased, and ultimately cash inflows will be increased, profit will be increased. In this way, these factors will affect the Indian economy in the short run or in the long run, positively, favorably. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for your very lucid description of the problem. Now I will move on to our next and our third speaker, who is Dr. Santosh Kumar Dev from University of Dhaka. Sir, we have a question for you. For the tourism sector was the first sector to be hit by this pandemic, and it seems its revival will be the last among all the sectors. What is your opinion about the tentative time period of its revival?
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much for nice question. Really, any kind of economic crisis in globally and any kind of epidemic also first hit on tourism sector. And today's the time in COVID-19 pandemic first hit on tourism sector. And today I just presented in 2020, we just predicted that 78% international tourists will be decreased. And that is also predicted that from 890 million to 1.1 trillion USD may be losses in 2020 from the tourism sector in globally. So I do believe that to revive the tourism sector, government should have taken some strategy. I mean, flexible loan, they have to be provided at a low interest rate, and government should have to be provided some stimulus package related to the stakeholder of the tourism industry. And I do believe that others industry within the very short term, they can regain or reshape. But a tourism industry, that will take time. I personally believe that if the COVID-19 pandemic is prolonged, so it will take time to revive the tourism industry, and it will get the reshape as it is the nature of 2019. So I do believe that it will take 1 year time. So every country, the tourism destination management authority or tourism management authority, they have to be take a plan, and they have to be make a strategy for next 2 years how to meet the demand of the domestic tourist and international tourist post COVID era, and how they're just going to rebranding the tourism destination and others archaeological and man-made tourism destination. They have to be given more focus, rebranding as strategy. And finally, to reshape the tourism sector, we have to be more focused on virtual tourism. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. The final question, this is not from any audience, but this is from my side, since you are from our neighboring country, Bangladesh. So I just wanted to pose a small question towards you, that how well has Bangladesh been able to cope up with the COVID situation in comparison to India? Given that both are developing countries, resided mostly by poor people in huge numbers. What is your opinion on that?
Thank you so much. In case of the domestic tourist in both countries, India and Bangladesh, is a very significant amount rather than international tourists. But in case of the India, the mostly international tourists visited from Bangladesh. As in the last year scenarios, most of the international tourists from Bangladesh. But in case of Bangladesh, most of the international tourists from India, China, Japan, and Thailand, and European countries. So today's the time. I personally believe that the government, they have to be given more focus on tourism industry to reshape and to revive the tourism industry, and also created the more employment opportunities in upcoming days, and also keep the life and livelihood, and also we have to be protected. So that is why I do believe that Bangladesh and India both are the developing countries, but they're doing very good in terms of the tourism sector. Today, in case of South Asia, Bangladesh and India is a very attracting country, and people would love to traveling. So when I stayed in Europe for my study purpose, I've seen that most of the people, they would love to traveling South Asia, and their preference goes to one of the 7 wonders is Taj Mahal. You know, the Delhi Taj Mahal. They would love to traveling India, and also they would love to traveling world largest sandy sea beach, Cox's Bazar, in Bangladesh. There is a in the world one unbroken sea beach and longest sea beach in the world. So that is why people would love to traveling Agra, people would love to traveling Sundarban. Sundarban is a both country combination. I mean, India and Bangladesh, 60 and 40%. The both country combination is Sundarban and also the Cox's Bazar. So I do believe that in upcoming days, if we are promoting our country by using different type of social media and by promoting, we have to be make the different type of attractive promo of different historical places, man-made tourism and nature-based tourism. If you are promoting such an videos by social media and others media, I do believe that people would love to traveling in upcoming days more frequently than today in India and Bangladesh. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you for your kind attention and your time. Now I will be passing over the session to Professor Devdeep Mal, who is our organizing secretary. And Devdeep, over to you.
Okay, thank you, Duti ma'am. So it is my duty to convey a formal vote of thanks. I consider it as a privilege to propose a vote of thanks on behalf of the Bhawanipur Education Society College. My sincere thanks to the governing body members of our esteemed college, teacher in charge Dr. Suchandra Chakraborty, IQAC coordinator Mr. Tathagato Sen for their constant support in organizing the webinar. I also thank the head of the departments of commerce, both undergraduate and postgraduate, for their pivotal role in guiding the team members to arrange the webinar, and also my team members whose constant endeavor has been the result of this memorable and successful event. Today, I am humbled to say thank you our honorable speakers, Professor Dr. Devasish Sur, Professor Dr. Amalendu Huya, and Dr. Santosh Kumar Dev for allotting their precious time for this webinar. If time is money, then respected speakers, it is millions for us today after attending your resourceful and lucid deliberations. Your contents today will be echoed in our minds for a long time to come. I also thank the participants for sharing their enthusiasm for attending the webinar, their continuous cooperation and support, and making it a very successful event. There has been around 116 esteemed listeners today, which means that there has been around 116 into 2.5, that is 290 hours of active human minds in this webinar. With this, I am concluding my vote of thanks and requesting all the participants to kindly fill up the feedback form, that the link of which will be sent in a while to your registered mail IDs. The link will be active for around 12 hours. The certificates will be distributed to all the participants who have successfully attended and filled up the feedback form to their respective mail IDs in the due course. Thank you very much for bearing with us. This is a long duration. So thank you once again. So I am declaring the end of the program. Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, Amalendu.
Thank you,
Okay,
Thank
Santosh
you,
sir.
Devdi.
Thank you, Professor Dev. Thank you very much.
thank you so much, Professor Paramita Chakraborty. Thank you so
Please
much,
do.
Devdeep, for kind invitation of
It's my
today's
pleasure, sir.
session. Thank you so much, Amalendu sir, for your nice delivery. Thank you so much, Shur sir, for your fantastic and insightful delivery.
স্যার জাস্ট 1 মিনিট একটা ফটো নিচ্ছে, ঠিক আছে?
হ্যাঁ,
এই আমার ফটো ভালো করে নিও।
হ্যাঁ স্যার, নিশ্চয়ই। দেবাশিস